Lovely to see you all. In case you're wondering about the background, I thought a little quiz as part of this talk might be in order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare what's behind me at the end of this talk. Also, it's lovely to see two of my colleagues here, Shlomi Wise, one of our rabbinic coordinators, and Sharon Feldman-Bazan, my colleague in retail. So I thought during this difficult time, it might be interesting to talk to you about my work at KLBD. The funny thing about this topic is no matter what people's religious affiliation, everybody seems very opinionated about kosher. Jackie Mason once said that people who return from vacations, their immediate response is not about the place, the museums, the mountains, or the beaches. No, it's about the kosher restaurants they found and how big the pieces of cake were that they ate. So in KLBD, I operate as technical sales consultant for new certifications worldwide for raw materials and ingredients. It's important to emphasize that because they form the major part of KLBD revenue, contrary to most people's views that retail products and kosher restaurants, important though they are. So in my early years after qualifying as a young mechanical engineer, I've had a specialist career in technical sales. The previous 30 to KLBD involved the supply of all manner of stainless steel process equipment to corporate sectors of the food industry, to the likes of Unilever, Cadbury's, Mars, Britvic, Nestle, and many other big organizations like that. But having sold my business some 10 years ago, 10 years seems incredible. I've been with KLBD for 10 years. Yes, we will be having a Kiddush next year, Shlomi. Nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for my work in KLBD. And one of my first experiences at the department was when I made an early phone call to a prospect who, when I announced I was calling from KLBD, they said, "Oh, I know what that means, the London Death Bin." A small smile from everybody. But as the only clean-shaven man in a sea of bearded men, my position is perhaps unique. Initially, with the strange vocabulary one hears coupled with the announcement of Mincha every day, it's an unusual work environment. Often overhearing complex Hebrew phrases used by my rabbinic colleagues. Just a few examples, I hope I pronounce them correctly. For example, nat bar nat, which refers to secondary absorption, nikua, which is the removal of forbidden fats used in shechita, duchka desakina, which is to do with pressure, yol solides bo, temperature that one would withdraw one's hand from, which is relevant to certain aspects of halakhic kashrut. Chame taveria, geothermically heated groundwater. Kovosh refers to 24 hours. And my favorite, which might surprise you, is Evan Malubin. Now, when I heard this phrase, Evan Malubin, I thought they were referring to a Welsh international footballer. But in fact, no, Evan Malubin is a special device. It's, let's call it a koshering stone held within a frame, and it's used for kashering in a vessel on Pesach. It's not used, it's a pretty dangerous thing to use, but Evan Malubin, there it is. So, KLBD is the oldest kosher certifying authority, built importantly on great experts in both ingredient knowledge and Jewish law that affects them, particularly so in some difficult areas such as dairy-based products and those where kosher fish could be involved, or indeed grape extracts. Everybody gets very nervous when they hear the word grape in KLBD. So where fish are involved, for the production, for example, of omega-3 rich oils, we have to check the crude oil comes from a catch of kosher fish. Not so easy with hundreds of species. With grape extracts used as nutrients, such as grape skin color, anthocyanin, I think the phrase is, or grapeseed extracts used in some of those fancy tablets that people tell you to take for your health. We have to be sure when grapes are involved, there's no connection with the fermentation process used in non-kosher wine areas. Now, most recently, we've become successful with so-called superfruits, such as baobab. If you haven't heard of baobab, it's a coconut lookalike product from Senegal, typically, or acai and goji berries, all used in connection with certifying for global export work. And that's what's often not understood, why such items or other ingredients need kosher certification. It is because world exports demand it like any other accreditation, such as organic, vegetarian, or indeed halal. And because ingredient manufacturers never know where their products will ultimately end up, where they could be an intermediate product, of course, it could be part of the kosher food chain. But most of these companies, you know, within their quality assurance departments, they all fully understand kosher. And the aspects of visits by our rabbinic auditors, who are each expert with the taste and smell of ingredients, in addition to their understanding of the process. Indeed, part of my initial training did involve me going out, as I know Sharon has done as well, on several audit visits. So audits, when a rabbinic auditor, somebody like Shlomi, for example, goes out to visit a plant, a typical procedure would be an initial pre-discussion, checks of documentation to make sure any other kosher certificates they've got are valid, a warehouse storage check, so we can check some of the ingredients they say they're using and look at the kosher logos that are often on those containers, and a process check to make sure that nothing has changed from the previous year's process description. A typical range of products that we're handling in ingredients and raw materials are colors, flavors, natural extracts, essential oils, synthetic chemicals originated to produce things like acetic and tartaric acids. Of course, as Sharon could probably tell you much more expertly than me, we've entered a new phase of kosher certifying, certainly in the retail sector, for gluten-free. Gluten-free and many other products, specialist vegetarian products, have come into the fold now for KLBD. Via Sharon and our department, we've become quite successful at it. So our products, when we are approached, as often I'm asked by clients around the world, we roughly classify them as A1, A2, or A3. And just for the simplicity of describing it here, A1 describes spices, flour, malt, natural extracts, or some of the superfruits that I mentioned earlier. A2 is where a varying process operation, such as blending or steam cleaning, is involved. And A3, where complex finished products are the case, such as the famous Mars bar that you all know that we certify, because it has many ingredients and many process operations to produce such a product. So besides the normal contact by telephone and email to locate new customers, a big part of our work involves finding new prospects at international finish and ingredient exhibitions around the world. I mean, I hadn't put this in the script, but sometimes, as Shlomi and I'm speaking to Indian customers, and a typical response is when I say to them, I want to talk to you about kosher. And they say, kosher, kosher, kosher. I hope I'm allowed to use that accent, but anyway, there it is. And they say, kosher. And we're saying kosher to each other probably half a dozen times. And then I asked them the question, I said, do you understand kosher? And then they repeat, kosher, kosher. I said, do you understand? And they say, no. And that's a typical response. That's typically what happens. And you have to bring over kosher to them in a simplistic way and about what the benefits are for them being kosher certified. So these exhibitions that I mentioned before, Sharon is quite expert. I did quite a few years of it as well. They're ideal places to find new prospects and say hello to existing clients. But additionally, my work has also involved giving PowerPoint presentations on kosher to existing client open days, to various academic associations, universities, and food research establishments. With millions of Jews in their backyard, you could say that the whole of the kashrut industry is largely driven by the US agencies, some of the names you will have heard of, such as OU, KOF-K, Star K, Circle K, and many others. But, you know, KLBD, we're in a very important geographically strategic position in Europe and rank just approximately as about the 6th largest agency in the world. So when we do find a new company ready to consider kosher, initially they must make an application on a simple form. We need to know where they are, because sometimes the costs involved in visiting, you know, some of these places way out in the outback are expensive. And of course, we need a process flow chart to find out what they're going to do. So our certificate is normally issued as part of an annual audit. So this means a visit is normally required once a year to renew kosher for the next year. Sometimes if the product is very simple, we do allow a audit once every 2 years. At the moment, you might be interested to know, we're carrying out virtual audits by camera, which according to the simplicity or the complexity of the product, whichever way you want to think about it, we will sanction that, and one of our rabbis will view what's going on via a camera, a little bit like what we're doing now. And so that's what's going on at the moment. I mean, what a lot of people don't understand is that some of the locations that our rabbinic auditors have to visit, places like Pakistan, India, Japan, Sri Lanka, even Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Sudan, are visited, but our inspectors are used to this. Their attitude to travel is completely different to yours and mine, strictly functional. And often with very antisocial working hours, as their level of kashrut is of the very highest standard as you would expect, and maybe they only purchase fruit locally. So concerning the process, cleaning, where parev follows dairy, this involves a special kashering procedure to be carried out to ensure there is no contamination. But this is normally no problem for companies because they've got sophisticated cleaning arrangements. It's called cleaning in place, and normally they can program their arrangements so that it will be automated. Steam is often used in the process, and where it's on a ring main, we have to be cautious. We have to ensure that it has not been circulated in another part of the plant, potentially where either dairy, particularly if we're on a parev product, we have to be concerned about the circulation of steam and that it's not indeed been part of a non-kosher operation on the ring main within such a factory. And it does happen. So in KLBD, we have ingredient specialists and chemists, the validity and background of any materials and process aids, they know them all. Things like stabilizing agents and indeed cleaning solutions. The products I mentioned earlier is one thing. You might also be interested to know within the field of kashrut, there's also packaging materials. Packaging materials that are going to have proximity to foodstuffs also, under certain circumstances, need to be kosher certified, and indeed we do certify a number of packaging companies worldwide. So our administration do a tremendous amount of liaising between the customers and the inspectors, people like Shlomi, to arrange the initial inspection date, to book travel and accommodation, and to ensure the certificate is both posted and sent in electronic format. That's no small feat, and we have a fantastic administration department run by Gitta Rottenberg, my colleague, who arranges all these things. And most people just think of kosher, it's kosher, but there's an awful lot of background work in arranging for the audits to take place. And of course, she has to make sure that payments are made by clients in advance of the auditor's travel. Because obviously, if you're koshering something in, or making sure something's kosher, for example, in Pakistan, you want to make sure you've got your money first. We pride ourselves in KLBD as being very professional in all work, particularly so in our sales and marketing, providing significant revenue for the United Synagogue. All of this under the inspired leadership of our Executive Director, Rabbi Jeremy Conway. In addition to catering and restaurant licensing, the showroom schedules are arranged. KLBD also has an information department producing alerts and also guides for the community and answering many calls from people often in supermarket asking, is this kosher or is it approved? Our commercial manager, also I'm pleased to see is present today, is Russell Brown. He is, he'll probably be red-faced for me saying it, but he's a great expert in all facets of the commercial part of kosher and financial issues linked with KLBD. And I pay, as I know Sharon would as well, a grateful acknowledgement and appreciation of his guidance to me over the years. I must also mention Sharon, who looks after the retail and finished products, very important sectors, and she also provides kosher roadshows for the community. I hope this brief overview of my work has been of interest, and if there are one or two questions under the guidance of Rabbi Fine, who I'd also like to thank for allowing me to speak here today, I'll be very happy to take them. And in the meantime, I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.